Police, People versus Julius Orton. Record should reflect that Mr. Orton is here to say, and people are represented by Assistant District Attorney Frederick Roberts. Mr. Orton, you were not here when the findings of fact decision and verdict was rendered by this court. You had Mr. Morrison standing for you, I believe.
Either that or we gave you my, the fact that I couldn't come medically and I was in the emergency room the day before. So either way that was handled.
Did you receive a copy?
I did not.
We'll provide it to you right now. I think it's a written decision. I did read that into the record at the time. Based on the guilty plea, I put, or the guilty finding, I put this over to sentencing this evening. Any legal reason why sentence is not too close to each other?
No, Your Honor.
People move sentence.
So moved, the right make 15 days.
Is there anything you'd like to say, Mr. Jordan?
Yes, sir. At the beginning of this trial, you talked about American law being the rise of English law. And I had some experience last year being in the UK and Scotland. And although no, I didn't get that far. But what I did notice is that there was a right to protest that is not just one side saying that the Constitution says this, and it's limited by time, manner, and other restrictions. And the UK has had a longer experience with protests than we have here, and I think it's interesting. In fact, the peace symbol that we have here is a circular thing we all recognize as a peace symbol. Well, it was designed in 1958 for the campaign for nuclear disarmament. So they were starting many years before that. And in 1981, there was a group of women called at Greenham Common, and they established a peace camp and to protest the decision to site 96 cruise missiles at the Royal Air Force Base. And in 82, 30,000 women assembled to protest, and the following year, 50,000 women participated. The cruise missiles were flown back to the U.S. in 91, 92 as a result of the INF Treaty. And the camp continued as a nonviolent peace camp until 2000. So for 19 years there, a large group of women were protesting these missiles, and there were a small number of arrests, but not in conjunction, not anywhere like this is 38 people and 38 arrests and 38. In 2006 in Scotland, there was a protest that set out to block the main gates of the naval base in Faslane for a year, and they wound up on over 100 days where 2 gates were blocked. I think there are 3 or 4 gates to this massive base. Were blocked for more than 2 hours. And there were 1,150 arrests over this year. There were 75 prosecutions, and I don't have the breakdown of that. So they obviously took things a little bit different. And so with these and other protests, the National Police Force undertook a 2-year study, and in February 2011, they issued a final report entitled Policing Public Order. And what I found is on one page of it, the following statements by the police. This is the national police in the United Kingdom, in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. These are quotes from this report by the police. There must be a presumption in favor of peaceful protest. Mere obstruction of a highway does not render a public assembly as unlawful. And the third quote is, there must be convincing and compelling reasons to interfere with the right of peaceful protest. I understand legally, that's not in our chain of thing. It's not a whatever. But it does exist, and we do come from English law. And then I also see on television when our presidents and our Secretary of State talk about things like, I want to take this moment to inform the American people about the situation in Libya. Last month, protesters took to the streets across the country to demand their universal rights in a government that is accountable to them and their aspirations. But they were met with an iron fist. I'm not sure you're going to qualify as an iron fist. I will see very shortly. That's President Barack Obama saying this. And Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently said, the people of the Middle East, like people everywhere, are seeking a chance to contribute and to have a role in the decisions that will shape their lives. Leaders need to respond to these aspirations and to help build that better future for all. They need to view civil society as their partner and not as a threat. And Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also said, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of the press are pillars of an open and inclusive society. So I'd like to go now to Washington, D.C. for a moment. And last month, there was a congressional hearing chaired by Representative Darrell Issa. And he wanted to know why the protesters were still allowed to be there. We started an encampment in October 6th at Freedom Plaza, and there was an occupied. And they called the, what's his title? Jonathan Jarvis, he's the National Park Service Director. And he answered questions. The National Park Police handle more protests than any place in the country. And they take a measured and reasoned approach. Not all black and white and gray. And during the hearing, Mr. Jarvis remarked there had been 2 previous instances where there had been long-term protests in D.C. In 1979, 6,000 family farmers drove to D.C. to protest farm policy and were on the National Mall for 6 weeks. In 1968, the Poor People's Campaign set up a shanty town for a month called Resurrection City. At the conclusion of his testimony, Mr. Jarvis noted that the Supreme Court, there's no quote for this and I don't have, has afforded the National Park Service a great deal of discretion as to how to enforce the ban on camping. And a member of that committee, Congressman Elijah Cummings, thanked Mr. Jarvis for using discretion and understanding the delicate balance between giving frustrated people a chance to gather and protecting health and safety. And I believe there has to be a balanced approach to people exercising their First Amendment rights and the limits set by manner, time, and place restrictions. So I asked, why not here in the U.S., New York State, in DeWitt Court before you? Thank you.